India 5.17 hours, July 5th, 1943. First Lieutenant Michael Wittmann stares through the periscope of his Tiger tank at the vast fields before Kursk. In mere minutes, Operation Citadel, the largest tank battle in history, will begin. What Wittmann doesn't know is that this is his first day in combat. In a Tiger, over the next 8 hours, he will make history. His tank will survive 45 direct hits. He will destroy 30 enemy tanks, and Soviet commanders will write in their war diaries, "We are fighting something impossible." The night before the battle was endless. Wittmann and his four-man crew had barely slept. The radio operator, Sergeant Werner Irrgang, checked the radio frequencies for the 10th time. The gunner, Lance Corporal Balthazar Woll, almost lovingly stroked the breech of the 8.8 centimeter KWK 36 cannon. The loader, Private First Class Eugen Schmidt, methodically stacked the 88 millimeter shells, each one weighing 33 pounds. The driver, Private First Class Rudolf Herschel, checked the fuel gauge, 143 gallons of gasoline. Range, maybe 60 miles on roads. Off-road, significantly less. Wittmann knew his men, like his own brothers. Woll, 24 years old, from Munich, had worked as a mechanic before the war. His hands were as steady as a surgeon's, even under fire. Schmidt, just 20, from a small village near Stuttgart, was the strongest in the crew. He had to be. 92 shells at 33 pounds each, almost 3,000 pounds of ammunition that he had to move in combat. Herschel, 26, from Hamburg, had been a truck driver before the war. He knew every sound of the Maybach engine, every vibration of the tracks. Irrgang, 23, from Berlin, was the quietest. Even when all hell was breaking loose around them, his radio transmissions were always clear, precise, professional. And then there was Wittmann himself, 29 years old. From a small farm town in Bavaria, a farmer's son joined the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler in 1937, campaigns in Poland, France, Greece, Russia, wounded 3 times, awarded the Iron Cross first and second class. But this was something new. The Tiger wasn't a normal weapon, it was an instrument of destruction, like the world had never seen. They all knew. The Tiger was a technological superiority on tracks. 56 tons of steel, front armor of 100 millimeters on the hull, up to 120 millimeters on the turret. The 8.8 centimeter cannon could penetrate a T-34 at 1,600 yards, right through the front armor. But they also knew a Tiger was slow, maximum speed of 24 miles per hour, and it was prone to mechanical failures. Of the 15 Tigers in the Dusson SS Panzer Corps, only 13 were operational. This morning, 05:30 hours, the artillery barrage begins. The earth shakes. Wittmann feels the vibrations through the 40 millimeter thick steel walls of his tank. He gives the order, "Start the engine." The Maybach HL 230 P45 engine roars to life, 700 horsepower. The noise is deafening, even with the tank crew's headsets. Black smoke billows from the exhaust pipes. Around them, dozens more tanks awaken, Panzer IVs, Panzer IIIs, assault guns, a mechanized army. 06 sound hours, they roll forward. Wittmann sees the first Soviet positions. He threw his binoculars, 900 yards away, trenches, anti-tank emplacements, and then, 100 to 300 yards ahead, the unmistakable silhouette of a T-34. Wittmann's heart races. He has fought in an assault gun in recent months, but this is his first deployment in a Tiger, his first test against the feared T-34. Woll, the gunner, has already acquired the target. Wittmann gives the order. "Armor-piercing round loaded." Schmidt confirms. "Loaded." Wittmann. "Fire!" The Tiger shudders. The 88mm shell leaves the barrel with a muzzle velocity of 2,700 feet per second, 1.5 seconds flight time, then a blinding flash. 1,300 yards away, the T-34 explodes. Its ammunition detonates. The turret flies 50 feet into the air. That was at 06:14 hours. Wittmann's first kill in the Tiger. But Soviet observers had seen the muzzle flash. Seconds later, a 76mm shell howls over their tank. It impacts 50 yards away. Wittmann orders change position. Herschel hits the gas. The Tiger crawls forward 200 yards. Stop. A new firing position. 06:27 hours. 3 T-34s appear over a crest 1,000 yards away. They drive in line, a standard Soviet tactic. Wittmann calculates in a flash. The T-34s have 76mm F-34 cannons. Effective range against heavy armor? Maximum 550 yards. He has time. Fire on the left tank. Wall aims, Schmidt loads. Fire! Hit! The left T-34 stops. Black smoke rises. The crew jumps out, runs. Second shell loaded. Fire on the center tank. Hit on the side. The tank spins. The tracks are blocked. Third shell. Fire on the right tank. This one has recognized the danger, turns away, tries to escape. Too late. The shell penetrates the thinner rear armor. Explosion. In 90 seconds. 3 T-34s eliminated. Irgang, the radio operator, reports over the radio. 3 enemy tanks destroyed. Grid Square 47C. The reply from the battalion commander comes immediately. Well done. Continue. But then something happens that sends a chill down Wittmann's crew. A 76mm shell strikes their Tiger, directly on the front armor. The noise is terrifying. A metallic crash, as if a church tower were collapsing. The entire tank shudders. Inside, everyone is thrown forward. Wittmann hits his head on the periscope. Blood runs down his forehead. Irgang shouts, "We've been hit," but Wittmann checks quickly. No penetrations. The 100mm front armor has held. The shell has bounced off. 07:15 hours. They have already destroyed 7 T-34s. But the Soviet offensive rolls on. Dozens more tanks stream over the hills in front of them. Wittmann realizes this won't be a short engagement. This will be a war of attrition. The Tiger has 92 shells on board. At this rate, they will be empty in 3 hours. A new wave of T-34s attacks. This time, there are 8 tanks advancing in a broad formation. The Soviet commanders have learned single T-34s are easy prey for the Tiger, but a mass of tanks attacking simultaneously can perhaps overwhelm the Tiger's slow rate of fire. A Tiger can fire about 6 to 8 rounds per minute. 8 T-34s need at least a minute to destroy them all. In that time, they can get closer. Wittmann sees the tactic immediately. He orders Herschel, reverse, maintain distance. The Tiger crawls backwards. Wool fires. Hit. A T-34 burns. Schmidt's already loading the next shell. A 15-kilogram behemoth rammed into the breach, sealed and ready. 12 seconds for the whole process. Wool fires again. Direct hit. A second T-34 grinds to a halt, but the other 6 keep coming. 700 meters, 600 meters. They open fire. Shells whiz around the Tiger. One slams into the right track to screech of metal. Herschel reports, right track damaged, but still operational. Wool works like a machine. Target acquired. Fire. Hit. A third T-34 explodes. Its turret blown clean off. Fourth T-34, fire. Hit on the side. The tank spins in circles. The crew bails out. Fifth T-34, now only 400 meters away. A dangerous distance. At this range, a T-34 can penetrate the Tiger's side armor. Fire. The shell hits the T-34 head-on. It stops dead in its tracks. 6th T-34, 350 meters. Fire, hit, explosion. But the last two T-34s are now within 300 meters. They split up, one to the left, one to the right, trying to outflank the Tiger. Classic pincer movement. First Lieutenant Wittmann has to make a choice. He barks, "Turret left!" Wool spins the turret. The Tiger's electric turret drive whines. 60 seconds for a full 360-degree rotation. They only need 90 degrees, 15 seconds. But in those 15 seconds, the T-34 on the right fires. The shell slams into the side of the Tiger. Again, that terrible metallic crunch. Again, everyone is thrown around. Irgang screams. Wittmann roars. Fire! Woll pulls the trigger. The T-34 on the left, now directly in the crosshairs, is penetrated at 250 meters. A massive explosion. Ammunition detonation. Turret right. Another 90-degree rotation. The last T-34 realizes he's alone. He tries to escape, turning away. Woll fires. The shell hits the side. The T-34 rolls another 50 meters, then stops. Smoke billows out. 08:30 hours. 8 T-34s destroyed. A total of 15 enemy tanks since the start of the battle. But Wittmann's Tiger has now taken 12 hits. The frontal armor shows deep gouges, but no penetrations. The right track is damaged, but still functioning. The periscope is cracked. Wittmann has to navigate through a narrow slit. Inside the Tiger, the heat is unbearable. Outside temperature, 28 degrees Celsius. Inside the tank, after 2 hours of continuous firing, over 45 degrees. The crew is soaked in sweat. The stench of cordite, burnt oil, and human sweat is overwhelming. Schmidt, the loader, has already loaded 40 shells. His arms are trembling with exhaustion. Each shell, 15 kilograms. 600 kilograms of metal moved in 2 hours. Irgang reports the latest kills over the radio, but he also receives disturbing news. Other Tiger units are under heavy fire. One Tiger is out of action, mechanical failure. Another is surrounded by tank destroyers. The TWE SS Panzer Corps is fighting across a front of 15 kilometers. Chaos everywhere. Smoke, explosions. 09:45 hours. A brief lull in the Soviet attack. Wittmann seizes the opportunity. He opens the turret hatch, climbs halfway out, breathes in the fresh air. The battlefield before him is a landscape of destruction. Burning tanks as far as the eye can see. Columns of black smoke rise hundreds of meters into the sky. The smell of burning diesel and burnt flesh wafts over. Bodies lie among the wreckage. Soviet tank crews who didn't make it out. But Wittmann also sees German losses. A Panzer IV is burning 200 meters to the left. A Sturmgeschütz lies on its side 300 meters to the right, blown up by a mine. This is not a one-sided victory. This is mutual slaughter. In this moment of silence, Wittmann thinks of home, of his wife, Hildegard, waiting for news in a small farm town in Bavaria, of the last words he wrote to her, "If you read this, I'm already in combat. Pray for us." He thinks of Schmidt, whose fiancée in Stuttgart is expecting a child. The young man had shown Wittmann a photo. A beautiful woman with blonde hair. He had said, "If I don't come back, tell her I was thinking of her. Until the end." Wittmann shakes his head. Such thoughts are dangerous in combat. Concentration is vital for survival. 1 second of inattention, and an enemy shell will find you. He drinks from his canteen. The water is warm, tastes metallic, but it's water. Essential in this heat. Irgang calls from below. "First Lieutenant, new radio messages. The battalion reports heavy fighting in the northern sector. One Tiger is out of action. They need support." Wittmann considers. His Tiger is damaged. The track is unstable, but others need help. What would a good officer do? The decision is clear. We're going. They need us. Wall reports. Ammunition at 50 shells, almost half used. Herschel reports. Fuel at 60%. The Tiger guzzles gas like a monster. 540-liter tank. Consumption in combat? 400 liters per 100 kilometers. We have maybe 2 hours of combat time left before we have to return. 10-30 hours. The next Soviet wave rolls in. But this time it's different. This time it's not just T-34s. This time it's also heavy KV-1 tanks. Wittmann counts 4 KV-1s, accompanied by 6 T-34s. The KV-1s have 76mm guns, but above all, they have massive armor. 90mm on the front. The Tiger can still penetrate them. But it takes precise hits. The battle begins at 1,400 meters distance. Wittmann knows. At this range, the KV-1s are relatively harmless. Their guns aren't accurate enough. But the Tiger is lethal at this distance. Wall aims at the leading KV-1. Fire. The shell hits the frontal armor, but the KV-1 rolls on. No penetration. Wittmann orders. Again, Wall adjusts. Aims at the point where the turret and hull meet. A weak spot. Fire. Hit. This time the KV-1 stops. Smoke rises. The Soviet formation does not break. The other 3 KV-1s and the 6 T-34s keep advancing. 1,200 meters. 1,000 meters. Wall fires continuously. A T-34 explodes. A second stops. But the KV-1s are tougher. Their thick armor absorbs hits that would instantly destroy a T-34. At 800 meters, the Soviet tanks begin to return fire. Shells whiz around Wittmann's Tiger. One hits the ground 3 meters in front of them. Explodes. Dirt and shrapnel pepper the frontal armor. Another hits the turret side. Again that terrible crunch. Wittmann is thrown against the turret hatch. His ribs ache, but the turret is still turning. No serious damage. Wall destroys the second KV-1 at 700 meters, then the third at 600 meters. But the fourth KW-1 gets through, accompanied by 3 T-34s. They're now at 400 meters. Critical distance. Wittmann roars. Rapid fire. Wall and Schmidt work in perfect harmony. Target acquired. Fire. Load. Target acquired. Fire. Load. In 40 seconds, they fire 5 grenades. 3 hits. The fourth KW-1 stops burning. 2 T-34s explode. The last T-34 turns away, trying to flee. Wall hits it in the side. Explosion. 11:45 a.m. 25 enemy tanks destroyed, but Wittmann's Tiger tank has now sustained 23 hits. The front armor is covered in deep impacts. The right track has been hit multiple times, threatening to break. The radio is damaged, only receiving, no transmitting possible. The periscope is completely destroyed. Wittmann must navigate through the narrow vision slit. His vision is reduced to about 60 degrees. Inside, it's hell. The temperature has risen to over 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Wall is in a slight state of shock from the continuous impacts. His hands are shaking. Schmidt can barely lift the grenades anymore. Herschel reports, right track could break at any moment. Irgang bandages Wittmann's head wound with a dirty piece of cloth, but the battle is not over. Over the radio, Wittmann hears the desperate calls of other units. An armored division is encircled. An infantry battalion is being overrun by Soviet tanks. The entire operational area is a chaos of smoke, fire, and death. 12:30 p.m. Wittmann makes a decision. They can't go back. Not while other German units are fighting. He gives Herschel the order. Forward. We're looking for new targets. The damaged Tiger tank crawls forward, the right track screeching ominously with every turn. They roll over a hill, and on the other side, they see it, a Soviet anti-tank position with 7 76mm anti-tank guns, protected by infantry. The guns are firing on German infantry, 800 meters further east. Wittmann sees German soldiers dying, torn apart by grenades. He orders, "Fire on the anti-tank positions." The Tiger tank is not just a tank hunter, it is also a bunker buster. The 88mm high-explosive grenades are devastating against soft targets. Wool fires at the first gun. The grenade explodes right next to the cannon. The crew is thrown away like dolls. Second gun. Fire. Hit. The cannon flies through the air. Third gun. But the Soviet gunners are brave. 3 guns turn their barrels towards the Tiger tank. A direct duel. Tank versus anti-tank guns at 600 meters. The guns fire. 3 grenades fly toward the Tiger tank simultaneously. 1 misses, 2 hit. 1 hits the front armor, bounces off. The other hits the upper front plate, where the armor is only 80 millimeters thick. The grenade doesn't penetrate, but the force of the impact is enormous. Inside, everyone is thrown backwards. Herschel hits his head against the seat, loses consciousness. Wittmann roars, "Keep going!" He climbs forward, pulls Herschel out of the driver's seat, sits down himself. Now he's commander and driver at the same time. Wool continues to fire. 4th gun destroyed. 5th, 6th. The last gun tries to flee, is being pulled away by infantry. Wool hits it at 700 meters. Explosion. 1:15 p.m., 25 tanks and 7 anti-tank guns destroyed. But the price was high. Herschel is unconscious. Wool can barely aim. His eyes are swollen from the impacts. Schmidt sits on the floor of the tank, too exhausted to get up. Irgang tries to repair the radio, unsuccessfully. Wittmann sits in the driver's seat, staring through the vision slit. In front of him is the battlefield. Hundreds of burning tanks, thousands of corpses. The earth is torn up by grenades, black from explosions. The sky is dark with smoke, even though it's only 1 p.m. in the afternoon. But then he hears a message over the radio that gives him new strength. The voice of the battalion commander. To all units, the breakthrough has been achieved. The first line of defense is broken. We are consolidating the positions. Good work, comrades. Wittmann realizes they did it. The first day of Operation Citadel is a tactical success, but at what price? He looks at his watch, 1:30 p.m. 8 hours of combat, 8 hours of hell. He gives the order. We are retreating, slowly, cautiously. He turns the Tiger tank. The right track screeches, but it holds. They roll back across the battlefield, past burning tank wrecks, past craters, past corpses. At 2 p.m., they reach the German lines. Mechanics immediately run to the Tiger tank, open the hatches. When Wittmann climbs out of the turret hatch, the mechanics can't believe it. The Tiger tank is covered in hits. They count 45 impacts. 45 times this tank was hit, and it survived. The chief mechanic, an experienced sergeant, walks around the Tiger tank, inspecting every hit. He shakes his head. I've never seen a tank that's taken so much and still drives. Your front armor deflected 18 hits, the sides 15, the turret 12. The tracks are torn, but still working. How did you even get here? Wittmann doesn't answer. He can't. He sinks to the ground, leans against the track of the Tiger tank, and closes his eyes. His hands are shaking uncontrollably. His ears are ringing from the explosions. His body is one big bruise. Medics take care of Herschel. He has a severe concussion, but he will survive. Wall is treated for shock. Schmidt gets water and salt tablets for dehydration. Irgang, who is still in the best shape, reports to the battalion commander. At 3:30 p.m., the battalion commander comes to the Tiger tank in person. He reads the preliminary combat report. 30 enemy tanks destroyed, including 26 T-34s and 4 KW-1s. 7 anti-tank guns destroyed. Several infantry positions eliminated. One Tiger tank sustained 45 hits, no crew losses, still operational after repairs. The commander looks at Wittmann. "First Lieutenant, this is the most impressive combat report I have ever read. You have made history today." But Wittmann feels no triumph. He only feels exhaustion, and he knows. This was only the first day. Operation Citadel will last weeks. Tomorrow they will fight again, and the day after tomorrow, until either the Tiger tank is destroyed, or they die, or the war ends. That night, while mechanics feverishly work to repair the Tiger tank, Wittmann writes a letter to his wife, Hildegard. "Dearest, I can't tell you much about today, only that we fought and survived. The Tiger tank is a marvel of German engineering. He protected us. As everything around us exploded, my crew is brave beyond imagination. I'm proud to serve with them." What First Lieutenant Wittmann didn't mention were the moments of stark terror, the seconds when a shell flew towards them, and he didn't know if the armor would hold, the sound of metal crunching against metal, the smell of blood and sweat inside the tank, the faces of the Soviet tank crews trying to escape their burning vehicles. But in Soviet headquarters, just 12 miles away, there is utter dismay. Colonel Alexei Petrov, commander of a tank brigade, is reading the day's casualty reports. His brigade is decimated. Of the 50 T-34s that started the morning, 32 are destroyed. The survivors report a German Tiger, fighting like a demon, indestructible, deadly at over a mile away, Petrov writes in his war diary, which was found in Soviet archives after the war. July 5th, 1943. "We experienced hell today. The Germans have a new tank. They call it the Tiger. Our 76mm guns are useless against its armor. We can only penetrate it at very short range, but it annihilates us from 1,600 yards. I watched a single Tiger destroy an entire company of my tanks. My men are already calling him the Demon. We desperately need new tactics, or we will all die." In Moscow, the reports reach headquarters on July 7th. Stalin himself reads the analyses. The NKVD interrogates surviving Soviet tank commanders. They all say the same thing. The Tiger is superior, technically, tactically, psychologically. The solution: mass. For every Tiger, 5, 6, 7 T-34s must be deployed. Some will get through and destroy it at close range, but many will die. That's the brutal math of the Eastern Front in 1943. German quality versus Soviet quantity. One Tiger could destroy 5 T-34s. But the Soviet Union produced over 15,000 T-34s in 1943. Germany produced 1,350 Tigers in total during the entire war. Wittmann continued fighting at Kursk until July the 16th, when Operation Citadel was called off. In those 12 days, he destroyed a total of 38 enemy tanks. His Tiger was hit 67 times, but he survived. His crew survived. After Kursk, Wittmann became one of Germany's most famous tank aces, until his death on August 8, 1944, in Normandy. He officially destroyed 138 enemy tanks and 132 guns, but it all started on that July 5, 1943, his first day in the Tiger, the day a young first lieutenant became a legend. Today, over 80 years later, Wittmann's tactics are still studied at military academies. His engagement on July 5, 1943, is considered a textbook example of tank warfare. Maintain distance, keep frontal armor towards the enemy, precise target acquisition, continuous movement, conserve ammunition, crew coordination. But it also shows the human cost. 5 men crammed into a steel coffin in 120-degree heat under constant fire for 8 hours straight. No toilet, hardly any water, the stench unbearable, the fear paralyzing, And yet they fought on, because their comrades were counting on them, because orders demanded it, because they had no other choice. Recently declassified documents from the German Federal Archives revealed details that were secret for decades. The psychological reports on tank crews after Kursk, 73% showed symptoms of severe combat stress. 40% had hearing damage from the explosions. 28% were deemed unfit for combat and transferred to replacement units. Wittmann's crew, they fought on. Herschel returned after 2 weeks. Wohl, Schmidt, Irrgang. All stayed with Wittmann until his death in Normandy. They were more than a crew. They were brothers, forged in the fire of Kursk. The Soviet soldiers who fought against Wittmann deserved the same respect. They fought with inferior equipment against a technically superior enemy, and yet they attacked again and again. Their bravery was no less. Their losses were only higher. After the war, a British historian interviewed Soviet veterans who had fought at Kursk. A former T-34 commander named Ivan Kozlov recalled, "I saw a tiger on that first day. 7 of us attacked. I was the only one who survived because my tank had engine trouble and fell behind. I watched him destroy all 6 of my comrades, one after another, like a machine. I don't hate him. He did his duty, as we did ours. But I will never forget the faces of my friends dying in burning tanks." This is the truth behind the statistics. Behind the 30 destroyed tanks are 150 Soviet soldiers. Many burned to death in their tanks. Others were torn apart by shrapnel. Some survived with horrific burns, spending the rest of their lives disfigured. War is not glorious. War is not heroic. War is industrialized death. Wittmann's story is impressive because of the technical mastery, the tactical brilliance, the human endurance. But it's also a tragedy, a story of young men on both sides, fighting in a war they didn't start, for causes they often didn't understand. The Tiger tank itself, the vehicle that protected Wittmann, was a technical masterpiece. Designed in 1942 by Henschel, produced until 1944. A total of 347 built. Cost 250,000 Reichsmarks per unit. In comparison, a T-34 cost about 30,000 rubles, roughly 20,000 Reichsmarks. A Tiger cost 12 times more than a T-34. But was it worth it? Militarily, yes. A Tiger could hold a strategic position that would otherwise require an entire battalion. Economically, the debate continues to this day. What can't be debated is the experience of the men who fought in these machines. Wittmann himself said in an interview in 1944, "The Tiger is the best tank in the world, but it's also the hottest, loudest, most uncomfortable workplace you can imagine. After a day of combat, you smell like a chimney sweep and feel like a boxer after 12 rounds. Balthasar Voll, the gunner, wrote in his memoirs after the war, "Every time I fired, I prayed, not for us, for the men in the other tank. I knew what my shell would do to them. I saw it too often, but I fired anyways because otherwise they would fire and we would die. This is the hell of war. You kill, so you are not killed." The lessons of Kursk, and specifically from First Lieutenant Wittmann's first day in combat, influenced tank warfare for decades. NATO tactics during the Cold War were based on similar principles: quality over quantity, distance combat, armor and firepower. The American M1 Abrams, the British Challenger, the German Leopard 2, all follow the Tiger tank's philosophy: heavily armored, heavily armed, able to destroy enemy tanks outside their effective range. The tactical innovations that Wittmann demonstrated that day were later codified in tank manuals. The importance of crew coordination. The loader had to load the shell before the gunner acquired the next target. The driver had to understand the tactical situation without a direct view of the outside. The radio operator had to simultaneously transmit radio messages, observe targets, and care for wounded crew members. Every man was irreplaceable. Military historians have reconstructed Wittmann's engagement on July 5, 1943, in detail. According to analyses by the U.S. Army War College, several factors were crucial to his success. First, terrain. Wittmann chose positions on slight elevations, giving him visibility, while making him difficult for the enemy to spot. Second, movement. He never stayed in the same position for more than 3 shots. Third, ammunition management. He used armor-piercing rounds against tanks, high-explosive rounds against soft targets. Fourth, psychology. Soviet tank crews, seeing their comrades destroyed, lost their nerve. But the most important factor, the 8.8-centimeter KWK-36 gun. This weapon was originally developed as an anti-aircraft gun. The Flak 18 German engineers had realized if a gun can hit an aircraft at 8,000 meters, it can also penetrate a tank at 2,000 meters. They were right. The 8.8-centimeter shell had a muzzle velocity of 8-10 meters per second. Upon impact with a 45mm armored plate, like that of the T-34, the result was devastating. The shell not only pierced the armor, it exploded inside the enemy tank, turning everything into an inferno. Soviet tank designers knew about this threat. After the first Tiger tank encounters in early 1943, they hastily began to develop the T-34-85. A T-34 with a larger 85mm gun and reinforced armor. But the development took until 1944. During this time, Soviet tank crews had to live with the deadly reality. Their tank was inferior to the Tiger. They could only compensate through tactics, courage, and self-sacrifice. But modern tank crews have air conditioning, better visibility, computer-aided targeting. They don't fight in 120-degree heat inside a steel coffin. They don't suffer under the primitive conditions of 1943. And for that, they can be grateful. Wittmann's Tiger tank was reused after the repairs. He fought on the Eastern Front until September 1943, then was transferred to France. The specific Tiger tank that Wittmann drove on July 5, 1943, did not survive the war. It was destroyed by Soviet artillery in October 1943, but by that time, Wittmann was already driving another Tiger tank. The crew that made history on July 5, 1943, was decorated multiple times. Wittmann received the Knight's Cross. Wohl, Schmidt, Hirschel, and Irgang all received the Iron Cross. But the real reward, they survived that day, and that was by no means a given on the Eastern Front in 1943. These are not stories from Hollywood. This is not fiction. This really happened. On July 5, 1943, in the fields before Kursk, real men fought a real battle in real tanks. They bled, they sweated, they suffered, and many died. Their stories deserve to be told, not to glorify war, but to remember, to honor, to understand. What would you feel in Wittmann's position, in a tank, hit 45 times, surrounded by death, responsible for 4 other lives, fighting against overwhelming odds? Would you have the courage to continue, or would you break? These questions are not theoretical. Thousands of men on all sides of the war had to answer them, with their actions, with their blood, with their lives. Their answers, their sacrifices, their stories. That is what we must preserve, forever.